welcome to Rubbernecker's descriptions of slimlines. We're going to start out this discussion by talking about the size of slimline cards. There are a lot of different ones out there. Basic size 8.5 by 3.5 or 3.5 by 8.5. But there are also slimline cards made 4 by 9 and 3 3/4 by 8 3/4. So when making our dies, we had to make a choice of what we wanted to do. And we think that the 8.5 by 3.5 complete outside is the format we wanted to use. And so we made our dies a net 3 by 8. And that seems to fit within all the other outside dimensions. So we felt like that was the one that would be most appropriate. But there was another deciding factor that we wanted to make sure that we could do, and that was to make sure that this die, the 3" by 8" die, would fit on most people's machines. So we looked around and we decided that there's a lot of machines, and we said that maybe Sizzix has got the most of them. So we went with the Big Shot, and we looked at the plate that comes with the Big Shot. And they're 8.5 inches long. Unfortunately, they taper just ever so slightly in the last 1/4 of an inch on each side. So you have just a fraction over 8 inches to get this die on. So let me put the die on this plate here and show it to you. See, it just fits inside the tapers. So if you're working with a die that's longer than that, you're going to have a problem with that. So we wanted to make sure that our dies did that. Now, this is the machine that we use. We use the Crossover. It comes to us from the people that make our dies out of Phoenix, and it's got an 8.5 by 11 inch platen. And so you can see how much larger it is. So we don't have a problem with ours, but everybody doesn't have this one. So we wanted to make sure that it would work just fine for everybody. So that's what we went with. Now here's an example of a basic slimline card. This is in a vertical or portrait format. And our die cut out the white portion of this, and that's 3 by 8. And then the green piece is 3.5 by 8.5. And we stuck in some gnomes and put in a phrase. And it gives a nice feel to it. You know, you can get a nice back and forth composition as you visually move up the card. And it works well. It also works nicely in a horizontal format, and you could have the dies turned and peeking out that way just as well. So a lot of flexibility in this particular die. And we thought this was a nice little gnomes kind of saying Merry Christmas. We also used some of our Christmas bouquet die set, stamp set in this one. Now, I think what would be a good thing to do now is to actually cut out some of the pieces. So we've got our crossover machine out now, and we're going to cut a couple of the dies so you can see how easily they cut. Now that one I cut straight on or perpendicular to the cutting surface. And this one I'm going to cut at an angle. And it cuts easier on these big machines if you can angle that in and have it right up on a corner of your die versus running up against the square edge of your die. You'll find that if you've got the room in your platen to turn your die just a little bit, it's much easier on your machine, and it's much easier on your ears for the noise that it creates. So I would recommend that completely. So now let's go over a few of the different die cut patterns that we've created. So these are called full cuts in my mind. We're cutting the outside and the inside with one die. And most people's dies, this is what they do. They either cut an outline and leave a solid piece of paper in the middle, or they cut out the pattern at the same time. And we thought that was a great idea, and we wanted to make some like that. So you can see a number of ours that are cut out. These are outline dies. For me, that means they cut out the outline of the piece of paper, but they don't cut anything out of the middle. But then we decided that you might want something out of the middle. So we created another die that's called an insert die. And we'll get to that in just a second. That's the last, that's a nested set. And this one is, we call a one piece combined because it cuts out a piece out of the middle and the inside at the same time. But let's go back to this one. So we've got an outline die that we've cut out, and then we've added another die to the middle of it. And so these are examples of what I call insert dies, or slimline inserts is what the package is called. And they can be placed with any of our outline dies. So if you've got 3 of the outline dies and 3 of the insert dies, that's 3 times 3. You got 9 different combinations that you can have there. So if you have 10 outline dies and 10 insert dies, that's a potential combination of over 100 different combinations you could make. The inside dies are smaller, so they're less expensive. So it's an economical way to do things without having to buy every pattern in every shape. You can have a lot of flexibility and save a lot of money at the same time. So now we've got an example. This is a full cut die. We're going to cut out the outside and the inside all at once. And we found it was really interesting if you cut these out, that they work nice as a background for things, as you can see. Nice contrast. You could cut it out of another piece of material and lay some material back into those slots that are different colors for accent. Or you could do this, cut 2 pieces out and layer them by flipping it over, and you've got a pretty lattice work. So here we've got a little harvest gold coloring going on. And I'm going to take those and lay those down on something else here. Here's a nice rust. Very fall feel. Golds and reds, yellows of autumn. Let's take the yellow and green and we'll composite those again. Now let's grab a piece of purple. I always think of these colors, I think of friendly Halloween. No blacks, but just friendly colors, but still a little spooky. So here's a card we made using that combination of 3 colors. We used a Happy Halloween stamp and 3 of our die cuts. Some friendly ghosts, a little spooky tree, and some witches. And it came out like this. The slimlines are really cool because you can tell a story going up. It's not just, you're not limited on so much on a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 format. There are the dies packaging for you. Now let's cut some of the outline dies included with the insert so you can see how we do that. So this is kind of boring here, so we are going to move along pretty quick here. Tape down the outline, put in the inside, just line it up visually. You can get it pretty close that way. You can use a ruler if you want, but for the most part, you just have to get it visually attached and run it through. Pop out all our holes. There. So that's our scalloped circle with eyelets matched to our scallop frame. Or we could put the diagonals in, or we could put the circles, or we could put the ovals in. So the flexibility is up to your imagination. Now we're going to run this through on a nice piece of bright yellow-orange cardstock with the insert in it. And it's probably not a point that needs to be made, but I'm going to make it anyway. We cut this out of a couple different colors. You just fit them right back inside, and so it's kind of a mixy-matchy kind of thing. And lots of fun. Now, we've got some gift card holders here that have been, we took it and we used our scallop frame. We just folded it over once. And you can fold it even, or you can fold it uneven. And if you fold it uneven, then the card will kind of stick out the top rather than being tucked all the way inside. So however you'd want to do this. And we just took some yarn and a darning needle and stitched it up. This one was done with ribbon, and they were just little fun little things. So now I'm going to show you that it's always nice to match die cutting. So we've got a card here. Kitty made this one, and it's a camping scene, as you can see, but she was really great because it's frameless. So we matched the die cut on the grass at the bottom to the die cut for the overall frame. And so we cut out the frame, and then we cut out two more of the frames in green, and then used our deckled edge that you can see in the upper left-hand corner there to cut these pieces out so that they match along the bottom and on the left side for this one. And they're not made to go all the way across. They're only 6-inch dies, but they work great on Slimlines because it lets you just simply get a relief in between, so that you can slip something or you can pop them up and you get some dimensionality, and you're not having to take something and cut something. It's just a piece that you can make work. And there are a lot of different dies out there that will stretch across the 8 inches in multiple pieces. So now I'm going to go back to that same frame that we've been using, and I'm going to cut it again, and I'm going to show you one more card that we're going to make today. And this one comes to me from one of our ladies that does fabulous work for us, and her name is Pretty Chandran. And she created a nice little card by folding this guy. And so this one's got all the holes in it. Let me grab one here. There we go. We got one that doesn't have the holes in it anymore. And I'm just going to do it again, folding it in half. It is best if you score this, not scratching it with your fingernail. And so I've got a flip phone, and so here's one that we've got started. So I took another piece of paper and I tucked it on the inside of this. And I glued the card to it, glued the slimline frame to it, and I've got a couple pieces of paper on the top there. On the inside, I pre-stamped a flower and a little greeting. And so now I've stamped this from our flowering vine set, 3312. And I'm going to die cut out all those flowers and leaves, and that's what I'm going to use to create the front of the card. And I just glued them and stacked them on there and used the green as a base, and now you can see that the blue background was a bit of the sky. And I just layered them up, put a little phrase on it, and then, thanks so much, you're just blooming amazing. It's just another way that you can use slimline dies to do something that isn't necessarily slimline. Now let me show you some of the other cards that have been made. Certainly not by me, but by our talented team. These these first three come to me from Annie Williams, and that's using the bubble scallop frame. And I think that's 3303, our flowered set. And here she's used one of our new flowers. I think that's 3319 or 3320, I guess. And it's got the deckled frame around it. She did a wonderful job coloring up the background using markers. I can't remember the name. And finally, Annie's last one, and she's used the postage stamp. Very simple, very dramatic, missing you. And now most of these final ones are going to be from Kitty. Kitty Caracciolo, she's used the deckled frame, and she used the wonky insert frame here to cut out some holes. And our new beach dies. Here again is the bubbled scallop frame along with the oval and dots insert. I know we're all thinking of fall and Christmas already, but there's still some summertime left. Kitty's got a nice beach theme going on. This one's done with the full cut circle with dots and stitches. And she did it twice and put the red dots from one cut back into the other one. And here's a diagonal. It's kind of an interesting feel behind the lighthouse. Back to the beach again with the postage stamp. Back to the beach one more time with the bubbled scallops frame. And the camping set I showed you earlier, that's done with the deckled edge. Springtime has got the two one piece combined. And again, bees in the garden, very springy. the Halloween card I showed you earlier with the diagonal one piece combined. Full cut frame, as I call it. The gnome card for Christmas with our wavy one piece combined. Kitty with a beautiful poinsettia card with a postage stamp edge and the rounded corner insert. And our cute little train all dressed up for Christmas with the diagonal insert piece, a version of the Polar Express. We've got the pine tree forest, and this is using our nested dash set, stitch set. You can't quite see it. There's a fluttering of snow on the trees. And then finally back to the gift card holders and the scallop slimline frame and the bubble scallop. And we also made our flower card with that. Once again, designed by Preeti. That's it for us. Thanks for watching.